This is Fitness Splender's Pilates Glute and Thigh Workout. In this workout, we're going to be running through 7 different Pilates exercises, and we're going to be doing varying repetitions and varying levels of difficulty for each one. Now, you don't necessarily need a mat for this workout, but if you're going to be working out on a hard surface, a mat will definitely come in handy. We're going to start this routine off with an imprint to help warm up those core muscles. So what you're going to do is lay flat on your back, your thumbs are going to go to the base of your rib cage, those fingertips are going to go on the crest of your hip. As you inhale, you're going to arch your back up. You should feel those thumbs and fingers getting further apart. And then as you exhale, you're going to roll those hips in, pressing that lower back down to the ground, and those thumbs and fingers should get closer together. So you're trying to really arch that back up as high as you can, really roll those hips away from that rib cage as you inhale. Then as you exhale, you press that lower back down against that mat, suck that belly button in nice and tight, roll those hips in as tight as you can, contracting those abdominal muscles. Then just go right back out again, letting those abdominal muscles release, contracting that back, arching it up nice and high, and then back down. The breathing is inhale as you arch up, then exhale as you slowly press that lower back down to that mat. Now this motion is really nice and slow. Don't move too quickly. You want to actually pause at the bottom of that range of motion, that actual imprint position with that back on the ground. You're going to pause there for just a split second every single time you exhale, just holding that position, sucking that belly button in nice and tight, contracting those core muscles, just feeling that lower back press against that mat. And then when you're ready, just go ahead and inhale again, arching that back up again. We're going to do a few more repetitions of this, and then we're going to start into really starting to work on that butt. Just keep breathing in and out nice and slow. Really focus on that form. You want to be really mindful of how those hips are moving, how that rib cage is moving. Try and get as much motion out of this as you can. Really trying to exaggerate every single motion. So our last one, exhale as you slowly bring that lower back down, suck that belly button in and freeze it. And go ahead and let it relax. We're going to move on to our next, which is going to be a Pilates Bridge. So laying in pretty much the same position. You're going to lift those hips up off the ground. Keep those core muscles really nice and tight. Squeeze those glutes as tight as you can at the top of that range of motion. And then the breathing with this one is going to be exhale as you squeeze those hips up. And then inhale as you slowly let those hips drop back down. Every single time you drop those hips back down, you want to bring them back down to just barely touch the ground. Don't let those muscles release. You want to always keep them contracted. And then squeeze those hips right back up again. Now you can keep those hands and arms flat down against that mat the entire time if you want. It makes it just a little bit easier because those arms can help you out for balance. Otherwise, if you want to make it a little bit harder for those core muscles, you're going to bring those arms up off the ground so they're right above your chest, actually pressing those shoulders down into the ground to help you keep that balance. Or if you want to go to the really hard version, you actually press those shoulders up away from the ground so you're just kind of rocking on that spine. Now, that's the hardest version. It takes quite a bit more effort to keep that balance, especially if you have those feet really nice and close together. But don't worry about really challenging yourself. We're actually going to do this 2 more times through. You can either do with both feet on the ground again, or you can go to the next hardest version, which is going to be 1 foot at a time. We've got just a few more repetitions of this one. Keep those lungs open. Exhale on the way up. Inhale on the way back down. And let it relax. Very good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be a single leg bridge. Again, if you can't do a single leg, feel free to go back to the version we just did. So single leg, one leg comes up to either a tabletop or full extension. Then slowly lift those hips up using just one leg. Everything else applies. It's exactly the same way. So it's going to be exhale as you bring those hips up. Inhale as you slowly drop them back down. Barely let those hips touch the bottom of that range of motion every single time. Make sure you're always keeping those core muscles contracted. Those glutes and that hamstring are always contracted. And just like with both feet on the ground, if you want to make this more challenging for balance, you're going to bring those arms up off the ground, just letting those shoulders help you with balance, or bring those shoulders all the way off the ground, just balancing on that spine. Now remember, this is a very difficult version of this exercise, so don't worry if you can't quite do it. Just take your time. You might have to move a lot more slowly to help control that balance. Otherwise, keep both feet on the ground, keep those arms on the ground to help with that balance, to make it just a little bit easier. You'll still get a good workout on those glutes. Just 1 more repetition, and let it relax. We're going to switch sides, do the same thing on that opposite leg. If you're using both feet, you're just going to do another round. So starting with that knee bent or that knee straight, hands against the ground, nice and slow. Lift those hips up off the ground as you exhale. Inhale, slowly drop them back down, hover them just barely off the ground, and then squeeze them right back up. Now again, whatever version you did on that opposite leg, you want to try to mimic on this leg. So if you had those hands off the ground, you're going to need to bring those hands off the ground for this one as well. Just make sure you're trying to mimic the exact number of repetitions you did, whichever level you did. Just keep that motion going, concentrate on that breathing, trying to get as much range of motion as you can, really squeezing those hips up every single time, getting a nice tight squeeze on that butt, as well as contracting that hamstring nice and tight. Now make sure that you're not flexing up onto your toe with this one. A lot of people have a tendency to try to push up onto their toe to do kind of like a calf raise when they're doing this hip raise. So try to push all of your weight just into the heel of your foot so your toes are actually just barely touching the ground. That way you're going to focus on just your glutes and your hamstring as opposed to trying to use a little extra muscle through that calf. And that's your last one right there, so go ahead and let that relax. We're going to move on to our next exercise, which is going to be on your stomach. So go ahead and flip over onto your stomach. This is heel tap, so you're going to be contracting through those glutes and that lower back to lift those thighs up off the ground. Tap those heels together twice as you exhale, then inhale as those legs come apart. Now this is a relatively choppy, quick motion, so the breathing on this one again is going to be exhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, exhale, inhale. Just keep those muscles contracted to those glutes and that lower back to get those thighs up as high as you possibly can. That chest is just hovering off the ground just a little bit. If you want it to be harder, you can actually lift those hands all the way off the mat. Otherwise, those hands can stay there for just a little bit of stability for that lower back so it doesn't have to work quite so hard. Now focus on keeping those legs nice and straight. We're going to switch to pulses here in just a second. And bring those legs apart, hold them, and squeeze them up as high as you can. Just a pulse at the very top of that range of motion. Just going through 10 repetitions of this. Tight, tight squeeze at the top. Really make those glutes burn. And let it relax. Good job. All right, let's go and move on to the next, which is going to be a full back bow. So you're going to be laying flat on the ground and lift that chest and those legs at the same time. We're going to start with those hands just underneath those shoulders for the slightly easier version. You're going to focus on getting a nice tight contraction on that lower back as well as those glutes, trying to keep those legs as straight as you possibly can by contracting that thigh. Now, if you want to make it a little bit harder, you're going to bring those hands from underneath those shoulders to right in front of that forehead. Same exact motion though, just that leverage changes just a little bit. You're pushing a little bit more weight out away from you with those arms, so it just makes that motion just a little bit harder. Now just keep focusing on that form. You want a nice tight squeeze. You lift those legs and chest up off the ground, exhaling as you squeeze up, and then inhale as you slowly drop back down, preferably keeping those hands and feet hovering off the ground just a little bit. Now if you need to, if that back starts getting really tired, you can always let those hands and feet completely touch to give you a little bit of rest, but preferably, like I said, always hovering. All right, we're going to move on to the next hardest version, which is a full back bow with those arms extended. This is the hardest version. If you can't quite do this, then feel free to bring those hands back in front of that forehead or down underneath those shoulders for a little easier version. So same exact thing applies. Nice exhale as you squeeze those arms and legs up off the ground as high as you possibly can, getting as much of an arch to that lower back as you can. This focuses on not only that lower back, but those glutes and hamstrings as well. Now, if you focus on trying to pull those legs up as high as you possibly can, then you'll get a little bit more out of those glute muscles, out of those butt muscles. So make sure you're really trying to squeeze those thighs up off the ground as high as possible, not just lift that chest. If you just lift that chest, you'll only be focusing on that lower back, or more on that lower back than on that butt. Just keep those lungs open. Exhale as you come up. Inhale as you slowly drop back down. Trying to hover every single time, trying to let those feet and hands touch. Unless that lower back starts to get too tired on you, then you can always give yourself a little bit of a break. These are our last repetition right here. And let it relax. All right, to stretch that lower back out, we're going to sit back in a child's pose. So sit back on those heels, rounding that back out, stretching those hands out away from you. Now, as I'm sure you're feeling right now, that lower back will tighten up on you quite a bit. So just try to let it release as much as you can. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next. So lay flat on your stomach again. We're going to be doing a hamstring curl for this one. So again, pull those thighs up off the ground, hovering just a bit off the ground to engage that hamstring and those glutes. And then you're going to squeeze those heels in towards that butt as tight as you can, trying to keep those thighs constantly hovering off the ground. Now that chest is arched just a little bit. Those hands are underneath those shoulders for a little bit of support. The breathing with this one is going to be exhale as you squeeze those heels towards your butt. Inhale as you extend those legs back out. Just make sure you're keeping those lungs open, keeping those core muscles nice and tight, contracting those abdominal muscles, those obliques, and that lower back the entire time, even though they're not necessarily being used for this one. Make sure you're getting a really tight squeeze on that hamstring every single time. Tight, tight squeeze, pulling that heel to your butt as close as you can. and then a nice full extension, constantly keeping those thighs up off the ground. Now I've got just a few more repetitions to go. Really focus on that form. Tight, tight squeeze every single time, constantly keeping those thighs up off the ground. We're going to switch to pulses here in just a second. And just one more full extension. Bring those legs back up and pause at 90 degrees on that knee. Then pulses. Bring those thighs up off the ground as high as you possibly can. Remember, try to keep it just a couple of inches at the very, very top of that range of motion. Tight, tight squeeze. Nice quick pulse. Get a tight squeeze on that butt every single time. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and sit back in that child's pose one more time. Stretch out that lower back. Try to really relax those muscles to that lower back. Let them stretch out as much as you can. Let them release. And go ahead and let it relax. We're going to move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a kneeling leg raise. We're starting off with a straight leg first. So down on those elbows and knees, extend one leg back behind you, nice and straight, barely touching those toes to the ground. Squeeze it up nice and high. Get as high of a squeeze as you can without letting that lower back round. So you don't want to actually let that lower back dip down towards the ground. You want to keep a nice, straight, neutral spine. Squeezing through that butt as tight as you possibly can without rotating those hips and lowering that lower back. Just a nice, slow, controlled motion. Barely tapping that toe to the ground, then lifting up as high as you can. Again, tight squeeze the top. The breathing on this one is going to be exhale as you lift your leg. Inhale as you drop it back down and barely touch that toe to the ground. Just make sure you're keeping those lungs open and those core muscles nice and tight, sucking that belly button in the entire time. Now, as you're doing this, you might feel like the hip that you are supporting your weight with starts to feel fatigued and starts to cramp up on you a little bit. If that's the case, then shift more of your weight onto that opposite elbow. So more weight onto your shoulders, and that should compensate. Just keep going a little bit longer. This is your last one. We're going to bend that knee this time and then extend right back up. Keeping that knee bent the entire time, getting a tight squeeze at the top of that range of motion again. Should give you a little bit of a rest, a little bit of a stretch as you tuck that knee underneath you. And then again, nice tight squeeze. You extend that leg up behind you, contracting that glute muscle as tightly as you possibly can. Now your breathing is going to stay the same on this one. Inhale as that knee tucks underneath you. Exhale as you squeeze it up back behind you. Again, keep those muscles to the core nice and tight. So suck that belly button in, contract those obliques and that lower back. Keeping everything nice and solid. Just make sure you're keeping those lungs open, breathing as normally and as evenly as you can. Now we're almost done. Keep focusing on that form. Lungs open. One more repetition. Squeeze it up and freeze the top of that range of motion. Short pulses. Just a couple of inches, the very, very top of that range of motion. Tight, tight squeeze in that glute muscle. Really, really burn it out. We're going to be going for a while, so just get comfortable trying to force your body to push as hard as you possibly can to really burn those muscles out. The harder you push, the more you're going to get out of this. So make sure you're not letting yourself relax. Constantly trying to keep that knee up there at that top of that range of motion. Keep those lungs open. Don't hold your breath. We're almost done. And let it relax. Nicely done. Drop that knee back down. Sit back in that child's pose. Stretch out those glutes for just a second. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So bring that other leg out, fully extended first. Nice and slow. Lift that leg up as you exhale. Inhale slowly back down. Barely tap that toe to the ground. And right back up. Again, check those core muscles. Make sure they're nice and tight. Sucking that belly button in. Making sure that weight is evenly distributed between your knee and your elbows, to make sure that that hip doesn't start trying to cramp up on you. Now remember to keep this motion nice and slow. You don't want to start speeding it up. The slower you go and the more intensity you put into that squeeze at the top of that range of motion, the more you're going to get out of this exercise. So if you just start moving through this really quickly and just kind of swinging that leg around, you're not going to hardly get anything out of this workout. So you want to make sure that you move really nice and slow and keep everything contracted as tightly as you possibly can. We've got just a few more repetitions to go. Concentrate on keeping those lungs open. Exhale as you slowly lift that leg. Inhale as you drop it back down. Barely tap that toe. Make sure that leg stays contracted. Nice, slow, controlled motion. Contracting those abdominal muscles as well. Almost done. And tuck that knee underneath you. Keep that knee bent and press it right back up. Starting that next version. Nice, slow, controlled motion again. Tight, tight squeeze the top of that range of motion. Just keeping that knee bent. You should get a little bit of a rest every single time you pull that knee up underneath you. A little bit of stretch on that glute. And then you bring that leg right back up again. Tight, tight squeeze. You shove that toe up towards the ceiling. You want to feel like you're trying to poke a hole in the ceiling with that toe. So really, really press that leg up there. Again, keep those lungs open. Exhales, that leg goes up. Inhales, you tuck underneath you. And keep those core muscles nice and tight the entire time. We are almost done with this one. We're going to be moving on to those pulses next. Have just one more. Tuck it underneath. Press that leg up, freeze it, and go into those pulses. Just a couple of inches at the very top of that range of motion. Tight, tight squeeze every single time. Keep those lungs open. Nice, slow, deep breath in. Nice, slow exhale. Just make sure you are constantly trying to keep that leg up there as high as you possibly can. I know that leg's probably burning like crazy. That butt muscle is just giving out on you. Just make sure you are pushing through it as much as you can to get the most out of this exercise. If you start letting that leg relax, you're not going to get anywhere near as much out of this. We're almost done. And let it relax. Good job. Sit back in that child's pose one more time. Really stretch those glutes out. Stretch that lower back out. Nice deep breath in. Slowly exhale. And this workout is complete. Good job.